Hello, and thank you for joining us for another edition of Rail Rangers on the Road. Every month, the Midwest Rail Rangers take you to an interesting and unique railroad destination across the Midwest, including places in Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, and Wisconsin. The Midwest Rail Rangers, a 501c3 nonprofit, was founded in 2015 to provide onboard educational programs across the Midwest. Perhaps you have caught us on select weekends on the South Shore Line between Chicago and South Bend, Indiana, on private rail excursions featuring dome cars and other heritage rail equipment, and at various outreach events such as Train Fest in Milwaukee and Mad City Rail in Madison, Wisconsin. And now, mark your calendar for the first Sunday night of every month at 7 p.m. Central Time for Rail Rangers on the Road. Without further ado, here is this month's program. Well, hello and welcome to another edition of Rail Rangers on the Road.
Why?
Because I can.
No.
Guess what?
What?
Who tooted? Who tooted?
Yeah, thanks to our friends at the North Shore Scenic for this really cool shirt.
Yeah, it was me. I tooted. Okay. So we are here with another program, one of our virtual programs here. Now in our 2024, we are here in our fourth year now of doing these programs. Started way back 4 years ago in 2020. So great to have you along for another one of our virtual education programs. And where are we today? Well, we're inside somewhere. Wow.
Detroit?
No.
No.
So where are we?
Union, Illinois.
Yeah, you know what I realized? We've been doing these programs for 4 years, and we have never taken you just up the road from Chicago, just 60 miles to the northwest, Union, Illinois. We have never taken you to the Illinois Railroad Museum.
Yeah, so behind us is this beautiful
Nebraska Zephyr.
That's right. So
all right.
We're going to take you for a ride on the Nebraska Zephyr, and
Are
maybe some other things here at the Railroad Museum.
Awesome.
We'll show you.
Okay, yeah, we are here, a very special day. Well, of course, it's the dead of winter, early 2024 while you're watching this. Yes, you know, some of these winter ones we have to pre-tape because, you know, it's cold and not much going on in the middle of winter. So we do pre-tape some of these in the summer, and it is the showcase weekend here at the Illinois Railroad Museum.
Yep.
And they don't even tell you all what's going to run. So we are in for a full day of showing you some fun stuff here at the Illinois Railroad Museum. We've already shown you the Nebraska Zephyr, which I think we'll be pulling out shortly, and then you said we'll go for a ride on it?
Yeah.
All right. And of course, the sister train is the Mark Twain Zephyr, which we've written our 3-book series about, and did our DVD back in 2020. That came out in 2021 and 2022. So if you haven't got the books, you can go to MidwestRails.com and get our Zephyr books. This is one of the sister trains, though, that actually operates and runs here at the Illinois Railroad Museum. So
That's right. So let's have some fun today. Enjoy tagging along with us here at the Illinois Railroad Museum.
It's going to be fun.
So originally it had Oh, yeah. These cars were just a few years later in the MTZ, but not much.
Yeah, that's kind of like the one for the metro.
Hi, thank you.
Smells like an old train.
Where do you want? All the way back, or?
All the way back? Sure. Yeah, let's go. There's the receipt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm good over there.
This is all the way in the back. I know you won't bite.
I might.
Yeah, go ahead. Keep your hands. See you guys. Go ahead.
Nah, I think I'll take right here. I want a table.
There you go.
My favorite's a double animal. What's yours?
A single animal.
Okay.
I can't do a double.
Okay.
It's too much. I know. But I had to think about it for a minute. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, my shirt.
No one's sitting in the blue seat?
That's for the conductor only.
See, that's not here. Those works for me.
So we already fought over it?
No way.
Yeah.
So we didn't ride in this one. No, we just were in the coach. Or...
I think so.
Yeah, in the Cedar Rapids, they skipped out the entire interior.
Rail cars at Ellis Station.
No mudslides in there.
You knew exactly what I meant.
One of my coworkers was like, oh, what did you guys do when your friend was here? I was like, I made mudslides. It's like, were they good? I'm like, yeah.
You know where you're at? Okay. I thought you were on the Nebraska Zephyr. Okay, give you a hint.
This would be nice on the WGN though. The scenery that's See, he should have put those chairs in, is what I thought. Just like instead of the. Oh no, it was a two. Yeah, I mean, none of this. This is preserved the way it was. I mean, this is what the Tom Sawyer would have looked like.
It's just an open top.
I mean, this is what the Tom Sawyer. I think originally it would have, but it was more of a metal.
Yeah, you took it all out.
I know everything in here is original. And this is all.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Nebraska Zephyr, one of several trains you can ride today. Besides this train, there's our 1630 with a bunch of coaches on there, our Shea 5 logging locomotive with cabooses, an interurban train, and all kinds of streetcars running today. So, beautiful day, lots of things for you to ride today. So the train you're riding on, this is a Nebraska Zephyr. It was built in 1936. Now the very first Zephyr was the Pioneer Zephyr in 1934. It was an entirely articulated train. Articulation means there's one truck between two cars. You cannot just couple and uncouple them like you can our coaches or cabooses. So when they built this train set, say,
It's like our speaker system on the South Shore.
So which seat did Jimmy Davis sit on?
There we go.
all right, this is better. I don't know what happened. You probably didn't hear anything I just said. So let's start again. This train set was built in 1936. It was one of two train sets. It was the train of the gods and the train of the goddesses. This particular train is a train of the goddesses because all the cars are named after female deities. Now, when they built the original Zephyr, the Pioneer Zephyr, everything was articulated. So articulation means there's one truck between two cars. You can't just couple and uncouple them like you can our coach cars or cabooses. The locomotive was part of the train. The problem with articulation is that if you have a problem with one thing, you have to take the whole train out of service. So with the Pioneer Zephyr, if you had a problem with the engine, the whole train was taken out of service. In 1936, when they built these two train sets, trains of the gods and the train of the goddesses, they separated the locomotive, but they articulated the cars. Now, after 1936, I think because of the disadvantage of articulation, they went to individual cars. So originally this was a 6-car train set. A year later, they added a 7th car. And in the 60s, they took off 2 of the cars and scrapped them at their shops in Aurora. So the 5-car train set you're riding today, the very last car is the observation or a first-class car. The swivel seats were the first-class seats. As far as we know, the 6 chairs and table were open to anybody who simply wanted to come back and enjoy the view from a coach section. The next car up is our dining car. Half of it seats 32 people with the 8 tables. The other half is the kitchen. Now the entire train has air conditioning, mechanical air conditioning, but they didn't use mechanical refrigeration. The kitchen uses ice. So when we wanted to use the kitchen, we had to put up a ladder, go to a hatch on the roof, and dump bags and bags and bags of ice in for refrigeration. And despite having electricity, it didn't use electricity for cooking. There's a cast iron stove that burns charcoal, and I'm told from the cooks that it gets up to about 130 degrees when you're standing in front of it cooking, and you can't back away about more than 1.5 feet because there's a cooler behind you. So you can cook for about 10 minutes, then you need to walk away and cool down a little bit. Now, of course, when they built these trains, everything dumped down into the tracks. In fact, there's a sign by the toilets on all the cars that says, "Kindly flush after each use," except when standing in the station or when running on streets. So when we had to bring the kitchen up to current health standards, they did not like that. We had to put in holding tanks. we'd have to use the kitchen, we have to have one working restroom, which is the one on this car. So we had to put in a holding tank for this restroom, and then we had to put in 2 holding tanks for the kitchen area. A gray one and a black one for the kitchen area. Now this car is very aerodynamic, so there are panels that go all the way from one side to the other. Unlike our coaches, which are open underneath and the air can get trapped in there, these cars were very aerodynamic, so they're stainless steel panels that go from one side to the other. But because of the holding tanks, we had to take a few of those panels down. Now if you go into barn 9, this train normally is stored on track 91. If you look at the east wall of barn 9, you'll see a bunch of panels up against the wall. Those are the panels we had to take down to put in the holding tanks. Another thing we had to do was we had to add a dishwasher. I guess in 1936 they did everything by hand. We had to put in a dishwasher. So you'd hardly even notice it. It's right underneath the stainless steel counter. It will wash dishes from beginning to end in just 3 minutes. So the next 2 cars up are our coach cars. Each one seats 60 people. The very car after the locomotive is, half of it is the power car. There's 3 diesel engines generating 220 volt, 3-phase for the lights, for the air conditioning, and for the point of service hot water heaters that are required when the restrooms and kitchen are in service. There's also a steam generator because this train was heated by steam. So you could park the train and you still have your heat and air conditioning and lights and not even have a locomotive attached. In fact, since we can run even any locomotive, I think one year we actually ran our steam train 1630 on this, just for the fun of it. So the other half was originally a bar car. It had high stools, high chairs like you see in bars today. In the 60s, they got rid of those and put regular coach seating in there. We do not seat people in there because the air conditioning is missing a few parts, and you do not want to be in these cars when the air conditioning is not working, which is why the first car after the power car will probably not seat people in that car later today because the air conditioning isn't working and it just gets too hot. People think they don't mind sitting in the car without air conditioning, and they soon find out they were wrong. And they want to get out of that. So that's the 5-car trains that you see today. Now originally it was not a Nebraska Zephyr, it was a Twin Cities Zephyr operating between Chicago and Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota. Now the Burlington route went straight west of Chicago through Aurora over to the Mississippi River and then up the very scenic route of the Mississippi. The competition, Northwestern and Milwaukee Road, had diagonal routes between Chicago and the Twin Cities. So their route was shorter. However, time-wise, they were very similar. So the Burlington had to go faster to cover more mileage in about the same amount of time. And they did. Once they got past Aurora, they would easily normally run 100 miles an hour or more if they need to make up time. I think today we think, oh, that's fast, 100 miles an hour. But you got to remember, the Illinois Central, south of Chicago, ran steam engines at 100 miles an hour. I can't imagine a steam engine going 100 miles an hour, but they did it during those times. So it was a Twin Cities Zephyr until 1947. Because that route was so scenic, in 1947, that route got dome cars. Now, by then, there were individual cars. So they were individual dome cars, individual coaches. The Burlington was the first to develop a dome car a few years earlier. They'd taken a coach, cut the ceiling off, put some seats and windows up there, and the very first dome car, the Silver Dome, is still in existence at another museum. What I find interesting is that if you look at it, the windows above the seats are not curved like they are in the dome cars today. They were simply flat glass. So anyway, that got new cars in 47. And then this became the Nebraska Zephyr from 1947 to 1968. It was retired early in 1968. We got this along with the locomotive. The locomotive is an E5 model, built in 1940, the only E5 in existence. What was unique about the E5 was the stainless steel siding that matches the stainless steel siding on the coaches. And it was originally geared for 110 miles per hour. So we're nearing the end of our main line. The right-of-way is the old Elgin and Belvedere interurban line, built in 1907, abandoned in 1930. So sometime after 1930, that's when they took up the bridge in front of our track and across the Kishwaukee River, and it was used to pay for the bankruptcy. So we're going to be stopping shortly here and shoving west. If you've got any questions, please ask the trainman on your car, and we'll be glad to try to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
dispatcher, Johnson Siding. Yeah, 9911A will meet the 160 at Johnson Siding and then proceed to signal 91 and call.
Alright, well, hello everybody, I'm Shelby. I'm your Zephyret. And Jim did come to one of my gigs, so it was pretty cool. He got to see it in action. I just came home at 2 a.m. actually. We had another one last night. But anyway, the Zepharettes were the railroad's response to the airline stewardess, essentially. The railroads wanted to compete with airlines, so they had their own stewardesses. Specifically on the Burlington route, they decided to have the Zepharettes aboard the Zephyrs. So this uniform I'm wearing is a replica that I made of a pre-war Zephyrette uniform. The Zepharettes who would have been on this train when it was a Twin Cities Zephyr would have been wearing this. Later on, after the war, the Zepharettes were only on the California Zephyr, and that's where we see the blue uniforms, the classic kind of Pan Am looking blue uniforms that they had. My blue uniforms at home. I like wearing the white after Labor Day. So yeah, so they would have had something very similar to this on this very train that we're on before the war. So Zepharettes were really busy people. The railroad didn't just hire anybody, it was a competitive position. So you had to either have a degree in some field of study or you had to be a registered nurse. So you'd have an educated person. They also had to have some sort of interest in the railroad. They had to want to be there. They also had to be between the ages of 21 and 28 and between the height of 5'4" and 5'8". I'm 5'8.5". So there's a little wiggle room in there for the height requirement. Essentially, they had to be a regular dress size that they would be able to give you a uniform. And they also had to be unmarried. They did have a couple exceptions towards the end of the Zephyret service where they needed people, so they did have some married ladies still working on the Zephyr, but usually they were unmarried. They made pretty good money. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head right now, and it would be hard to tell you what that conversion is in today's money, but they were paid well for that time period for working ladies, and they were not allowed to be tipped like you would tip your porter or something like that, or your bartender. They could be tipped in jewelry and gifts though, so if you would like to tip me in jewelry, I will take jewelry. I have been tipped in jewelry before. It's pretty fun. Have it with me in my train case. So anyway, Zepharettes were running around the whole train the entire time. They were on duty. They did have time to, eat and sleep a little bit, but there would have been one Zephyrette in charge of this whole train for this day trip. This would have been just a day trip, right? So the Twin Cities, Chicago to Twin Cities, and then the California Zephyr would have been obviously a longer trip, and you would be on that train for quite a while. So Zepharettes would be in charge of taking care of dogs, taking care of children, giving people water and snacks, making dinner reservations, pretty much anything and everything. And they were trained, like it was a pretty short period of time. I think we Wikipedia'd it, and actually it came up and it was updated on Wikipedia, so yay Wikipedia, but it was 30 days. they got trained. I don't think I had quite 30 days, but when I was done training, John made sure it was an authentic kind of experience. He made sure that I got the same thing that Zepharettes got when they finished training, and that is a first aid kit for obvious reasons. And I've used my first aid kit on this train, so it's come in handy for sure. And they also gave you a screwdriver. Someone said, "Hey, what's a screwdriver for?" And I said, "Well, what isn't it for? We're on a moving train, so there are a lot of things that can go wrong, right? Things unscrew." And a passenger told me about a month ago, I think, that he was on the California Zephyr and he was like 6 years old and locked himself in the bathroom and it wouldn't open. So the Zephyret came with a screwdriver and got him out. So that, please don't do that aboard our train. I would appreciate it if I didn't have to do that and break into the bathroom with a screwdriver, but you get the idea. They had a lot of things going on. They were kind of a multi-purpose stewardess person who's super busy and trying to make a really awesome customer experience for all the passengers. Anything else I missed?
Tell us about your pins
my pins.
and the research with the real Zephyr.
So, back in, I believe it's 2019, at the Burlington Route Historical Society meet, Jim was there, John was there. I went to meet a retired Zephyrette. Her name is Kathy Von Ipsch, and she came with her husband Ernie, who was a conductor on the Burlington Route. And together they had so much information on the California Zephyr. And it was really awesome to meet somebody who is retired and who actually did this. So Kathy is my go-to girl when I have questions or when I see something that I think, oh, is this okay for a uniform? I'll send it to her, and she'll let me know if hey, that's about right, or no, that's not right. She also gave me this pin. I don't know if you can see it. I'll come around, but this pin is a replica of a California Zephyr pin. This is probably the coolest pin that they had. She had a whole bunch of them made for all the surviving Zepharettes, and she kind of said, "Well, welcome to the sisterhood," and gave it to me. Yeah, she did. And it says Zephyrette on the bottom part, and there's a little chain connecting it to the round oval part of the pin with Zephyrus, and it says California Zephyr. So this would have been one of the pins that they had on the Cal Zephyr. This is a replica, of course. It's really hard to come by actually real ones. John tried, but we did not find it. But to my surprise, she took it off of herself and put it on me, and I was like, whoa! And it was pretty cool. It was a cool moment. So we learned a lot, and it's continual research. Not everything is out there on the internet about this subject area, so it's kind of you ask people and borrow resources from people who've done research and do some of your own. So.
Thank you, Shelby. Shelby revisiting our visitors in this last car, and then she'll be up to the coach, and you can take a close look at the pin that she has on, and feel free to ask her any additional questions you want.
Steam.
Bob, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. If I don't know an answer, I'll just make one up and you won't know the difference anyway. Couple of things. Please remain seated during the trip. We do tend to rock and roll a little bit. Also, if you came to the museum today with 2 hands, 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 feet, a head, a caboose, and small children, and you want to go home with them, keep them all inside the train. These windows are almost 100 years old. We don't guarantee they're going to stay where we put them. I do have some good news for you, though. There's a bathroom on this train. Bad news is it doesn't work. Don't try and use it, okay? All right? Trip's about 40 minutes round trip. I'll tell you a bit about the train once we get going, okay? The reason for the yellow ticket is we're keeping a count of how many people ride the train today. And you can ride as often as you want. We just don't want you using the same ticket each time.
I thought I was going to win something.
You did. You wouldn't ride with me.
Oh, the booby prize. Yeah. Is that what Ollie does with them? Or just so he has something else now? They just do them to have something. Oh, I thought you would. The car you're ridden on was built by Pullman in Chicago in 1924. When it was first built, it was what's called a combine. There was baggage up ahead and passengers back here. There was also a barber shop on board. In 1934, it was turned into a complete sleeper. There's 6 sleeping apartments up ahead. So the car weighs 176 pounds empty, 160,000 pounds empty. All right? Now a little bit about Pullman. As long as we're on a Pullman car. Pullman had his own town down by his factory, okay? And he was kind of a tyrant. He was not a nice guy. He would control all the rent prices because all the workers lived with him.
He also had stores, his own grocery store, which he controlled the food prices on. Well, when the business would fall off, he'd lower the wages, but he wouldn't lower the prices. So that eventually became a lot of uprising as a result of it, some of it involving people getting killed. As a result of that, we now have Labor Day. That became a part because of some of George Pullman's shenanigans. Now, when George died, he's buried in Graceland Cemetery, which is just north of Wrigley Field. If you go out, there's a large plot of land that says Pullman. Nobody knows exactly where in there George is at. They were afraid if people knew where he was at, they'd steal his body and hold it for ransom. Not only is he buried anonymously, he's also encased in concrete. He was a little paranoid. All right? Anybody know who took over Pullman after George died and you don't count?
Wow.
Abraham Lincoln's son, Robert Todd Lincoln, became president of Pullman sleeping car after George died. Now we are, as you notice, folks, in the middle of the car, there is a donation box to try and keep this car going the way it is right now and keep it looking as nice as it is. So any help you can give us, we'd appreciate. There's also a history of the car and a piece of it. Huh? There's also a history of the car on the table there. So feel free to take one if you want, okay?
All right, well, we just had tons of fun today, didn't we? I am tired out. The sun is going down, as you can see outside the barn, and we hope you had a great time with us here at the Illinois Railroad Museum today. Had a lot of fun, got to see a lot of cool trains. IRM.org is their website. Become a member, or you can just buy tickets, but why not support the Illinois Railroad Museum and become a member? There's so much here. I think we'll have to come back and do another, maybe later in the year, maybe here in 2024, we can come and do another virtual program or something like that. So
yeah, sounds good to me.
All right, remember, tune in next month, the first Sunday of every month, 7 o'clock Central Time, and you can watch our virtual programs here. We'll see you again next month, first Sunday night, 7 p.m. Central.
See you next
Till
month.
then, bye-bye. On behalf of the Midwest Rail Rangers, thank you so much for joining us for this program. Here's a look at the next program. Make sure you mark your calendar for this, and we look forward to seeing you then. In the meanwhile, if you're planning an Amtrak trip, don't forget about one of our exciting and interesting rail route guides. For more information, go to www.railrangers.org. That's www.railrangers.org. And click on the Rail Rangers store. There are plenty of options for both local and long-distance rail route guides, in traditional book format, PDF ebook, and even MP3 podcasts. Until we gather together next month, the first Sunday of every month at 7 p.m. Central Time, we hope you have a great week and a great month ahead, and come out and join us on one of our onboard educational programs. For a listing of our in-person programs, go to our website. Again, that's www.railrangers.org and click on upcoming events. Until next month, we'll see you then.